Hello.
Hello. How are you?
Doing well. Doing well.
Good. Good.
How are
All
you?
right. I'm good. I'm good. It's been a good day. A lot of client calls, but
Yeah.
I love what I do. So
You look different than last week.
yeah. I forgot. Yeah, I shaved. Literally, I was just like the client call before this. I get on. She goes, you shaved, and I was like, every time I shave, I like know I'm getting myself into a week of hearing that constantly.
Yep.
Oh, hey,
Mm-hmm.
oh, you shaved. So yes, yeah. Um, how are things? Week 1 is done. So give me a recap.
Okay. Well, first couple of days, I was so hungry. So hungry. I was like, what is going on with me? And then it turned out that the first 3 days were like the 3 days before my cycle.
Mhm.
And so as soon as that came, things got better as far as hunger levels. So I do feel like I'm adjusting now. My appetite is kind of adjusting. It is, a reduction from what I was eating. So yeah, just taking an adjustment. I lost 4 pounds this week. So I don't know if that's the reduction in calories or the no dairy or combination or what, but
Definitely would say it's a combination of both. And just to kind of preface, like, the reason I generally try to undershoot on calories the first couple weeks, or at least the first week, and the reason being is because I'd rather undershoot than overshoot.
okay. Yeah.
Right. So you're talking about 2,400. So I was curious if I put her about 2,000, how's your body going to respond? So losing 4 pounds is awesome. And the reason I say awesome, usually if you were losing like 4 pounds a week, I'd be like, okay, that's too fast. You need to eat more food. But a lot of that's going to be inflammation. It's going to be food weight too, like the amount of food you're eating. Like a lot of people, when they think of weight loss and weight gain, when they see the scale go up or down, they assume it's like it always just goes to body fat. But we have to consider like carbs you eat, especially if you go from like fruits to starches, you're going to retain more water from for every gram of carb you eat, you retain 3 grams of water.
Right.
So if you eat, say, 100 grams of carbs, which is roughly, a quarter of a pound, you're going to put on a pound from the carbs and the water that come with it, right?
Yes.
Then you have to think about the weight of the food in general, right? So if you increase food or decrease food, that's going to impact things. So you probably did lose some fat, but I'm sure it was also like those factors. Sorry to say, it probably was the dairy.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I really am not.
Yeah. So what'll be interesting is we do that for a couple more weeks, that no dairy,
Okay.
and then we bring it back in slowly, and we see if you have any negative impacts from it, and if you do, at how much, right? So like we kind of I know for me to feel good, I can have 1 to 2 servings a day, or 1 a day, or whatever, right? So
Yeah.
that's okay. So lost 4 pounds, cool. I am going to increase your food. I already did because I know we kind of talked about that in the midweek. Real quick, just so we can go over this. How was your cycle? Was it lots of cramps, all that, or was it?
So typically I don't have any pain with my cycles. This time I woke up at 3 a.m. on day 2 in a lot of pain, and it lasted for about, 12 hours. And I think it was because of the iron infusion, because this is my first cycle since that. So I think that messed it up a little bit. Thankfully, it wasn't heavier than normal. It was, pretty normal. A lot of times with iron infusions, it can be really heavy the next cycle, which is the worst, when you're trying to get your iron up. Thankfully, it wasn't. But I did have that pain. But then it just, resolved after about 12 hours, and then I was fine.
Yeah, I find that really interesting, especially when we talked about last week, and just making those connections between your endocrine system and your iron levels.
Yeah.
I wonder exactly what the iron infusions do that kind of manipulate the end of your cycle. Because generally, estrogen is super low and progesterone is peaking at the beginning or the end of your cycle, starting your cycle.
Mhm.
And so if there's an influence of like increase of estrogen rapidly right when you start, that could cause heavier uterine lining shedding. It could cause more cramps, right? Like we know estrogen dominance in women that have cycles tends to like heavier breast tenderness, more cramps, right? Things like that. So that's an interesting thought.
Yeah.
I mean, the best way to find out is wait till next cycle and see if you have the same symptoms or not. So, okay, cool. Outside of that, how has energy been? How have things like that been?
So yesterday and today, I felt really good. With, my cycle and stuff, my energy was down. So I was dealing with hunger, then I was dealing with my cycle, and then the last 2 days have been really good. So I'm hoping I'm like on a good trajectory.
Good.
But I do feel like with the iron stuff, I'll have a couple of good days and then I'll be knocked out for a couple of days. So it can be really random. But I'm thankful that I'm in a good place right now.
Good. Yeah, we'll have to keep an eye on that, especially because we don't have blood labs yet, and we're not doing anything supplemental to manage that just yet. So just keep me updated on how you're feeling with those ups and downs. I saw you got in 3 runs.
I did. Yes.
How did those go?
So I was going to ask you about that. I mean, I'm struggling with feeling like I'm not making any progress. Well, because of my heart rate. So I'm trying to keep my heart rate low while I run, which is basically impossible. For me to be in a running motion, my heart rate goes up. So I was going to ask you, is it better to just try to run as slow as possible and keep my heart rate as low as possible and sustain that, or to run and then walk and to get my heart rate back down? That'd be like heart rate going up and down rather than trying to keep it steady. What do you think?
So talk to me about, so because I've had this conversation with clients before. When you say like it's slow, like so like there's
trying to go in slow motion, like it's so slow.
Yeah. Well, do you know the pace? Like, do you actually know the pace?
It's like 16 minutes per mile.
Okay. How fast can you walk a mile?
Faster than that. I haven't checked it, but I'm pretty sure it's faster than that.
Yeah, I've noticed that. And how many miles are you doing right now?
Between 2 and 3.
Doing 2 and 3. Do you notice? And you maybe you've observed this. I'm just asking questions. Have you noticed that your first couple miles are much lower and then it creeps up as the run goes on? Or
I've more noticed the opposite, where it spikes up really fast and then as I find a pace or whatever, it kind of levels out.
So try this. So on mile 1, try like running a little bit and then don't wait. So hopefully this makes sense. When you start to run, don't wait for your heart rate to get too high to walk. Like intentionally run like a 1/10 of a mile slowly and then walk another 10th, and do that for the first half mile to a mile. Let your body get warmed up. Okay. Then try to slowly run the last mile or 2.
Okay.
That helps. Because some people, it's that initial shock to the body, right? Like, you'll hear if somebody's trying to run their fastest mile they possibly can. You don't just go cold turkey from like stretching to like running as fast as you can. Okay. You do like a 1/4 mile or a half a mile of ups and downs to like let your heart rate practice going up and down, and kind of basically like stretching your heart out. So
right. Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah, and that allows you to run at a higher effort with a lower heart rate because your heart's kind of warmed up to the intensity that you're doing.
Okay. Yeah.
Try that and let me know how that goes. What are you doing before your runs? Like, what are you doing like up to your runs?
Usually, so I try to fit them in when I can. So it really varies because it's not consistent with like every morning or anything. Like yesterday, I had to take my daughter to piano lessons. So we left a little early and went to the park, and I ran before I dropped her off. So it's just, regular daily life stuff.
Gotcha. Yeah. Just trying to fit it in.
Yeah.
Totally cool. I get that too. That's what I do. Something you could try to see if this helps is about 30 minutes before you're going to run, just brew a decaf coffee and then put a tablespoon of MCT oil in it with like some collagen or sweetener or whatever, whatever you want to make it taste good, and then bulletproof it and then drink it and see if that helps you going into the run. Just more ketones helps your heart relax. It's one of the benefits of being a fat adapted athlete is like, when you let ketones kind of run the story, so to speak, your heart tends to be a little bit more relaxed, and so you have a higher aerobic threshold.
Okay, yeah, I can do that.
So try that. Let me know how that goes. So we're gonna phase running and walking the first mile, and then slow run the rest, and then we're going to try about a tablespoon of MCT oil about 30 minutes before the run.
Okay.
Okay. Cool. Let's see how that goes. The thing about and two, just important to understand about running. Running is a slow game.
That's what I'm learning. Yeah.
Like, for example, and also like when you're running really slow during training, you don't think you're doing anything, but you are. For example, my last training run, it was a long run, but I averaged it was 7 miles. It was on Monday, and I was averaging 15-minute miles.
Okay,
right?
That makes me feel better about myself.
Yeah, I was walking. I was running and walking.
Yeah, okay.
But I know that if I were to go race right now, I could easily run sub 7-minute miles for 7 miles straight. Wow. Right? It's just it's the nature of the efforts, and you can't discredit what's called aerobic thresholds, which is just like, you know what aerobic threshold is?
Yeah, I mean, I have a general idea.
Okay, for everybody that's listening that doesn't know, aerobic threshold is basically the point at which your body stops using mostly oxygen and it starts tapping into more glucose because it's putting in enough effort to where it needs to fire energy quicker. And as you get more fat adapted and you get more efficient at using fatty acids and you get better at intaking oxygen as you exercise, that will creep up because you have more oxygen in your blood. You use more oxygen, which is also known as your VO2 max, and you're better at using fatty acids. And so you can create more energy more efficiently, and so you can deal with more intensity. So the idea is running slower helps increase that. It helps slowly increase that and get you better at it. And eventually, we're not there yet. I want to see how the next week or so goes. But we'll talk about including some speed runs too.
Okay.
You do want to run fast sometimes.
Yeah.
We talk about like an 80-20 split, like 80% slow, 20% fast.
Okay. Yeah.
So we'll definitely throw in some speed, which when you start running fast, you hate going back to running slow, but you have to accept both of them are part of the process.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Cool. How are your workouts going? Training?
They're going good. Well, speaking of speed runs, like yesterday we did our first outdoor workout because the weather has been beautiful. So that was nice. And so she had us doing like suicide drills, sprinting, and she had one battle rope thing and jump rope. So there's a lot of HIIT, really high intensity for short amount of time. It's going good. My heart rate, I was going to ask you about this, about how to train looking at my heart rate, because yesterday it got up to like in the 190s. And I'm like, is that a problem?
Okay.
Right.
No, good question. So yes and no.
Okay.
When you're training like HIIT style Tabata, and actually I have another question for you. We'll come back to it. When you train HIIT Tabata to style, heart rate's getting that high is normal.
Okay.
Thing is, you don't want that to be every single workout for two reasons. One, you're already running, which is chronically higher elevated heart rate for the duration of the run anyways. And then you're adding Tabata hits that are 45, 50 minutes long on top of that. That can cause a lot more stress than needed, and it can hinder your run progress. It can that intense of a workout consistently can make your heart rate higher when you run.
Okay.
Right? Even if it's a day after, right? Like you could work out kind of hard, not recover from it very well, and then go to run the next day, and your heart rate's higher than it should be at a slow pace. And it's due to the intensity of that training session. So I'm fine with them. I tell most clients, try to make that like one session a week, and then the other two should be like, heavy compound movements with intentional 60 to 90 second breaks between sets to let your heart rate come back down.
Okay.
Heart rate should only be high when you're doing the movement, because also those HIIT style ones, they help with overall aerobic fitness. They help with cardiovascular fitness. They do help with strength and functional fitness too, but they don't really stimulate muscle growth like a compound focus. When I say compound, I mean like back squats, deadlifts, hip thrusts, like heavy focused weight movements.
Yeah.
So I would say like do one like that, and then the other two should be like, you could do that workout, and then you could have one workout a week that's just your legs, and it's like 5 exercises. I can even like give you something if you want it. 4 sets of 8 or something like that on 5 leg exercises with adequate breaks in between sets, and then your next workout can be just upper body, right? Okay. And then rotate those 3. That I've seen that have much better overall, just not just in terms of it helping your running, but also like muscle growth, recovery, hormone balance, like all the things. Like I've seen women that like do HIIT too much and they lose their cycle because of it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's something to note. Are you running after you work out?
So like yesterday I ran in the afternoon and then had my workout class at 5:30 p.m. So one of my workout classes is 5:30 p.m. The other one is 7 a.m. So on that day I would run after sometime in the afternoon.
Have you noticed a difference in how high your heart rate is if you run before or after?
I did notice when I ran after last week that I was able to keep my heart rate lower.
Oh, that's good. That's intriguing. Usually it's the opposite. There must be some kind of like warming up before the run kind of thing.
Maybe.
Oh, that's
Yeah, because
interesting.
I worked out at 7 a.m. and then I probably did the run in the evening, probably like 6 p.m.
Oh, so you
So it
had
was a while.
yeah, and you had all your food in between them and time to
Mhm.
like kind of like wind down. Like that's good too. Have you had a run early in the morning?
Not recently.
Okay. So two things. So I want you to pay attention to that this week, like your runs before or after training and like how much your heart rate varies. And let's get some data on that. And then also if you can try to get a run in, same thing, MCT coffee, all that, but try to do it in the morning before most things. I know with kids and family and stuff, but as early as you can,
Okay.
as least stressed out as possible in your schedule.
Okay.
And see if that impacts your heart rate. Because I'm kind of curious, like what's impacting that? Is it just that your body's just building an aerobic base only? Or is there environmental factors that are impacting it? Is you're training around it, right? So we can kind of play with a couple things this week and just kind of see like what does your heart rate do so we can get some better idea of like what your body's trying to tell us.
Yeah, sounds good.
Cool. Killing your water. Good job. Crushing it.
Trying.
Yeah, you're doing a good job. Yeah, I saw your live with Lindsay. You were the tracking and stuff is a lot to adjust to again, huh?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's not hard. Like really tracking food, you just have to be on top of it.
Yeah, you do.
Especially when I'm like cooking meals and stuff, I have to be like really on top of weighing everything and stuff. You can't just cook a meal and then figure out the macros later.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is too is like once we figure out like what works really well and we get your blood labs back and we do any supplements or any kind of thing that we need to do to help with your iron levels and all of that. Once we get that all situated and you get a good idea of the amount of food you need to eat to feel good and train and progress well, we can work on adapting that to a more intuitive approach.
Okay.
We'll make that transition. Like so the one of the goals would be by the end of this to where like you don't need to track if you don't want to.
Okay. Yeah, I was curious about that. Like, what do you see with people? Do people just do better tracking forever, or is it something you can, or individual or whatever?
Yeah, so usually I do it in 3 phases. And even if they want to go back to tracking after we do this, that's fine. It's just kind of, I like to take them through this process if I can, if they want to work through that. So basically what we do is you track your food. And like you're used to tracking your food before you eat. I'm always like, track before you eat. So many people eat and then track and go, crap, what do I do now? And it's like,
you can't take it back.
Can't take it back. But then what we do what's called post tracking. And so after every meal, you intentionally look at your meal and you start paying attention to, okay, I just tracked this. This is what that looks like. This is how many calories and macros. This is what this looks like. And then the next day or the next week, we'll go to phase 1, which is look at your plate and think, what did my plate before that had X amount of calories and macros look like? And try to match that. And then track it and see how close you were, right? Because there's 2 things. One, it helps you exercise the eye repetition, but also it builds confidence and intuitive choices. Like you start to trust your body more because a lot of people struggle with that transition because they don't trust their bodies to make good choices for them.
Right.
And so it's like, oh, my body does know what 500 calories and 100 grams of protein looks like. It knows exactly what that looks like.
Yeah.
So you do that for a week and you build confidence. And then we do what's called post-day tracking, where you eat all day and write it down. At the very end of the day, you put it all in a tracker and you see how close you were to your goals before. That builds more confidence. And then we go to phase 3, which is no tracking at all. And we see what your weight and performance does. And if you maintain and perform well, then we know you now know how to eat intuitively.
That's cool. I like that.
Yeah. So we can definitely do that.
Okay.
Cool. All right. Sweet. I don't have anything else right now. I think you're doing great. I already upped your food. I'm going to make sure it's reflective of next week.
Okay.
We'll kind of see. I'm going to go ahead and put your weight on the habit tracker just since you are checking it.
I went to like put it in because I was going to, but then I can't edit that sheet on the program.
Nope. That's all me. I do that. I will definitely add that right now so that we have it. Yeah, I wasn't sure if I should have asked that last week. That's my fault.
That's fine.
All right, that's added now. So you can go and add those if you want. We'll keep an eye on that. And yeah, I'm good. Is there anything that we didn't cover that you want to ask me? Any questions you have?
The main thing was the heart rate stuff while exercising and running. So I think we covered that. I think that's it.
Sweet. All right. Well, keep me up to date and then I will talk to you next week.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jonathan.
Yeah. Bye.